Silver Spray. Yeah, we retrieved that E-firm.
We have completed our search pattern with no joy.
That's not good at all. It's not like they're gone. Can't even find them. No life raft or nothing.
Just minutes ago, Sig Hansen was completely devastated as the search for the missing vessel brought tragic news.
I really have a hard time being here because of what happened to our friends and losing them.
The flickering beacon in the wreckage spelled disaster. Aboard the Good Samaritan, the crew raced through the debris, their anxiety mounting. When the Coast Guard realized the beacon was from the missing boat destination, panic set in. What had happened to the crew of the destination in the dark, cold sea? Let's reveal the horrible truth about what happened. The unseen tragedy of the destination. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, the crew of the Good Samaritan, a shiny silver fishing boat, searched through the scattered debris, trying to find an emergency beacon. "Over there!" one crew member called out, pointing toward a faint flickering light among the floating wreckage. As they edged closer, the light suddenly vanished, swallowed by the murky depths, leaving behind a haunting silence that suggested the sea held secrets not yet ready to be unearthed. The Coast Guard was alarmed when they found a beacon crudely attached to some debris. The signal was from a fishing boat called Destination, confirming their worst fear, a possible disaster at sea.
You feel like you're on borrowed time, you know? And makes you all that much more nervous.
The dark and quiet night made the situation even more tense as the beacon kept sending out its warning. As the search went on, hope faded with each passing minute. Despite all their efforts, the search teams couldn't find any signs of life or survivors. It became clear that the crew of the Destination might already be lost. This tragic event was a harsh reminder of the dangers of the sea and the risky nature of their work. When the search ended without finding any survivors, the emotional toll on the search crew was obvious. They talked about the personal loss and the daily risks they faced. Some even thought about leaving the seafaring life, overwhelmed by the tragedy and the constant reminder of how dangerous the ocean could be. As the situation unfolded, everyone began to realize how serious it was, increasing their anxiety. One person shared how hard it was to be in such a place, surrounded by memories of friends who were no longer there. A deep sadness weighed on them, and exhaustion set in, making them want to leave that place. In the background, soft music played, emphasizing how far away safety still seemed. Thoughts of escape filled their mind. They gathered Edgar and Nick to plan their next steps, with the fear of their boat sinking always in the back of their minds. A possibility they knew was real, but couldn't fully accept. Nightmares often plagued the person, filled with scenarios where saving their crew was impossible, a fear that felt all too real. Crab fishing was like a battle. It required facing fears and pushing through, despite the risks. For those working on the Northwestern, accepting these dangers was part of the job. They knew the risks, but felt the pull of the sea, drawing them back each season. But things got even worse. As Edgar and Nick came back, they had to make a tough decision, still shaken by what had happened. Captain Sig Hansen, deeply affected by the loss, now faced some very hard choices. He realized he couldn't continue with the season. Losing one of his closest friends had hit him hard, making the idea of spending another day on the water unbearable. Overwhelmed by his emotions, he admitted to himself that he had reached his limit. This silent admission was heavy with grief and exhaustion, marking a moment of surrender to his circumstances. The absence of his friend was almost too much to bear. He felt an intense need to leave everything behind and return to a place that felt safe and familiar. As he kept replaying the tragic news in his mind, his decision became clearer with each moment. As the waves settle and the boat nears the harbor, a different kind of journey looms on the horizon. A journey's quiet end. With a heavy heart, Sig knew it was time to end this chapter. He steered the boat toward St. Paul Harbor, signaling the end of their time at sea. The journey back was quiet, with each crew member lost in their own thoughts, the usual chatter replaced by silence. When they reached the harbor, they began to prepare for offloading. Sig looked at his crew, his eyes resting on Edgar, who was about to take over. "Edgar will handle things once we dock," he said, trying to sound confident despite his worry. He knew Edgar was capable, but the recent loss had shaken everyone. As Edgar took the helm, Sig pulled him aside. "Just be safe, okay?" he said softly, placing a hand on Edgar's shoulder. It wasn't just a request. It was a plea from a friend still struggling with loss, hoping to protect others from the same fate. But ending the season early wasn't just about getting away from the sea. It was also about protecting what was left of their bond and their well-being. As they docked, the harbor, usually full of noise and activity, felt unusually quiet. Each step they took reminded them of the fine line between the excitement of the sea and the harsh realities it sometimes brought. The call echoes over and over. Pon, 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 pon. By February 11th, 2017, it becomes an urgent cry for help across all channels. The voice from Coast Guard Sector Anchorage fills the airwaves, sending out a clear and direct message. In the icy waters of the Bering Sea, the United States Coast Guard issues a critical alert to every ship nearby. They've received an emergency signal from the fishing vessel destination, just 1 mile west of St. George Island. Every nearby ship is asked to be on high alert, to help if possible, and to report any sightings back to the Coast Guard. The situation is serious, and the Coast Guard crew estimates they have enough fuel for about 4.5 hours. The journey to the distressed ship will take just under 2 hours.
Just setting this down a little bit west of where we were. You know, things change overnight, especially Baird Eye.
In response, an MHE-6 Jayhawk helicopter is quickly dispatched to the last known location of the emergency signal. The helicopter crew gets ready for anything that might come their way. The distressed boat is described as wide and painted blue, and it's believed to have 6 people on board. While there's hope that the crew won't need help, the team is prepared for a rescue if necessary, including the use of hoisting gear to lift people to safety if needed. But this wasn't the most challenging part. The urgency and careful coordination show how vital these responders are in protecting lives in such dangerous conditions. Ideally, all the crew members would be together right now. However, the latest AIS automatic identification system data shows they're about 310 miles away, drifting near St. George Island. To Coast Guard Unit C6037, we're starting our search operations right away. The Coast Guard helicopter is currently hovering over the area, trying to pick up any signals from the emergency beacon belonging to the fishing boat called Destination. In the best-case scenario, the boat might have temporarily disappeared from our tracking system and could be somewhere to the north. Unfortunately, we're still not sure exactly where they are. Please lower the helicopter a bit for a better look. As they scan the icy waters, the line between hope and despair blurs with each passing moment. The search for the lost silver spray. Can you see that over there? Does that look like a tarp? Yes, right there, just outside the helicopter window. Keep your eyes sharp. There seems to be more debris scattered nearby. This might be a clue, or it could be something else. But we need to check everything. Keep scanning the area and report any signs of the boat or its crew. We're hoping to find something that shows they're safe and nearby, but the situation could be more serious. Let's stay focused and thorough in our search, making sure we don't miss anything. Every bit of information counts right now. While navigating through a cluttered area of the sea, our boat encountered a line that seemed to belong to a crab pot, tangled among various debris. The sea floor was littered with different objects, making it hard to navigate and visually overwhelming. As we moved forward, we noticed several pieces of crabbing equipment. There were parts of buoys, tangled ropes, and broken bits of crab pots scattered around. This suggested that fishing activities were frequent here, and that gear might have been accidentally lost over time. During our search, something orange caught our eye. It was a life ring. This discovery was crucial because it could potentially be traced back to a specific ship, helping to identify any vessels that might have been lost in this area. The life ring became even more important when we considered that it might belong to a fishing boat called the Destination. If that was the case, it could be key evidence linking the scattered debris to the missing boat. The boat, known as the Silver Spray, was familiar in these fishing grounds.
Set our gear so that it's as tight as we can get it. We can share the crab, Not a big fan of setting gear right next to somebody, but hey, if my numbers double, I'll take it.
The Coast Guard got involved and coordinated with nearby vessels to help retrieve the life ring. Their assistance was vital in unraveling the ongoing mystery of the cluttered area. But this wasn't the worst part. After securing the life ring, it became evident that it could confirm the identity of the involved fishing boat. The debris around us painted a grim picture, suggesting that something catastrophic had happened. The remnants of fishing gear, safety equipment, and parts of a vessel hinted at a severe accident or storm that led to the loss and damage we observed. In response, a coordinated search effort was launched. The aim was to find more evidence and search for any survivors who might still be adrift or stranded. Each piece of debris recovered could provide clues or hope in tracking down the crew of the lost vessel. The task ahead was daunting, but it was also essential. The sea can be harsh and unforgiving, holding within it many such tragic stories. As the hours passed, the team worked tirelessly, mapping the debris field, cataloging each item, and holding on to the hope that some crew members might still be found alive. Yet despite the somber circumstances, finding the life ring offered a small glimmer of hope. It stood as a sign of the ongoing efforts and the unwavering spirit of those who braved the seas, whether as fishermen or rescuers. The team stayed vigilant, knowing that every minute counted in the search for those lost at sea. Amidst the vast and unyielding sea, a group of resolute men find strength in unity and purpose, survival and hope in the open sea. In the middle of the open ocean, 6 men sit in a life raft, surprisingly upbeat despite their situation. Each of them is deep in thought, but they share a common goal. The cold nips at their skin, but they stay healthy and strong, not just as survivors, but as determined rescuers on a mission. We need to stay sharp and give it our all, as if we're searching for our own families out here, one man says, encouraging the others. The raft gently rocks on the waves as they navigate 135 miles northwest towards a place called the Northwestern KC. They talk about the details of their journey, discussing the ocean currents and wind patterns. But their attention sharpens when the radio suddenly crackles with static. "Did anyone else hear that?" one of them asks, pressing the radio closer to his ear. A faint, almost ghostly voice had briefly come through. The men stop, listening intently, but the voice doesn't return. "It sounded like someone was trying to communicate," he adds, a mix of excitement and frustration in his voice. "Was that Jeff?" another man suggests, thinking of a colleague who often communicated from a distance. They strain to pick up the signal again, hoping for another chance to hear more. The thought that it might have been a distress call or an important message drives them to stay focused. As minutes turn into hours, the harsh environment begins to test their spirits, especially without any more radio signals. They keep talking about what that message could have meant, trying to piece together different possibilities.
Yeah, vessel 12 miles off my bow heading south. Are you crabbing? Are you dragging? This is a time bandit.
Each time they discuss it, their theories become more detailed. But they don't lose hope. Instead, they become more determined. They adjust their equipment, double-check their coordinates, and remind each other that their efforts are worthwhile. But this wasn't the worst part. The real challenge is the unknown. Whether they will find someone who needs help, or if their mission will lead to nothing. Still, they push on, knowing that their survival and the chance to help others depend on their perseverance. The cold seeps into their bones, but each man carries a fierce hope and a strong commitment to keep going, driven by the possibility that they might not only save themselves, but also help others lost in the endless sea. Roger and his team finally arrived at the spot they had been searching for, fully prepared for whatever they might find. Earlier that day, Roger had received an emergency signal, leading them to the very northern tip of St. George Island. When they got there, the sight was troubling. A life ring floated in the water, fuel spread across the surface, and pieces of wreckage were scattered everywhere. All signs pointed to a crab fishing boat having a serious accident. But the most alarming part? There was no sign of the crew, no survival suits, no bodies, nothing to indicate what had happened to them. This scene brought back memories of other tragedies in the Bering Sea, where dangerous conditions have claimed many vessels. One example is the crab fishing boat Destination, which sank under similar conditions. It went down northwest of St. George Island, likely due to severe icing that made the boat unstable and caused it to capsize. The combination of heavy ice buildup, an outdated stability guide, and over 200 crab pots on board made the situation even worse. As the wreckage whispers stories of the past, a grim truth about the dangers of the sea begins to unfold. Tragedy in the Bering Sea. Investigations into these kinds of accidents often reveal that there are several factors at play. In the case of the destination, the captain decided to set out even though there were warnings about bad weather and heavy ice. The boat was overloaded, and the cargo wasn't distributed well, making the situation even more dangerous. On top of that, the crew was likely exhausted after a long season and may have been asleep when the disaster struck. But these aren't just isolated incidents. They highlight the tough reality of crab fishing in the Bering Sea, especially during winter when ice is a constant threat. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, often uses these tragic events to push for better safety measures and to remind those at sea to be prepared for icing and to maintain their boat's stability. As Roger's team looked over the wreckage, they couldn't help but think of these past accidents.
He made a mistake, whatever he did, I don't know if it's illegal, I don't know what, because my lawyer can't even figure it out. But basically all the money that I invested in it's lost.
These stories serve as important reminders of how crucial it is to stay vigilant and follow safety protocols in one of the most challenging fishing areas in the world. But what they found next was even more concerning, something that suggested the situation might be even worse than they first thought. But this wasn't the worst part. This was the exact location where they had hoped to find survivors, maybe someone who had managed to hang on despite the odds. However, it seemed that no distress call was ever made. No one had reached out for help over the radio, which made the situation even more puzzling and tragic. Roger understood how close you and Jeff were, so he knew this news would be especially hard for you to hear. He wanted to make sure you heard it from someone who truly cares about you. The situation is very tough, and it's clear that everyone is deeply affected by this loss. Even though there was still a small hope that someone might have survived, the chances seem very slim given the evidence they found. Still, it's important to hold on to that tiny bit of hope, as it's all anyone can do right now. Roger wanted to let you know that everyone did everything they could, and they'll continue searching as long as it takes to find out what happened. This news is heartbreaking, and Roger knew that sharing it with you would be difficult, but he wanted to ensure that you were informed in the best way possible. Casey received some difficult news and made the effort to inform others about the situation. The sincerity and openness were acknowledged with gratitude. It was a tough moment, and an offer of support was extended, signaling readiness to assist during the challenging times ahead. The intent was to provide comfort and to reassure Casey that help was available whenever it might be needed. This gesture aimed to ease some of the burdens that came with the distressing news, showing compassion and a willingness to be there in times of need. Should we ever stop searching for the truth, even when hope seems lost? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.